Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to be looking at how to productively study history in 10th grade. So without any further ado, let's begin. So step 1, remember your dates. In every chapter, you'll see a small box like this on any page, and it says some important dates. And basically, this has every single date that's important for you to remember. 1797. It gives you in a sequence as well. So even though this table is on page 8 and the chapter ends on page 30, this still has all the dates that you have to know. And similarly, this is chapter 1, Nationalism in Europe, and this is chapter 2, Nationalism in India, right here. So we can see here that from 1918 to 1932, all the dates that are discussed in this chapter, and I guarantee you that you'll get at least 3 to 4 questions, especially considering that the upcoming exams are in multiple choice form. You get at least 3 questions for this. So keep these in mind, very important, and just memorize it. And that's all I can say pretty much. Next, nationalism is always the same. So since 9th grade, we've had a recurring chapter, which is nationalism. Whether it be the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, nationalism in Europe, nationalism in India. I broke it down into 6 subtopics. It's a breakdown of how nationalism works. And this is how any nation is formed. Any nation, any state, there's always some sort of presiding rule. So it could be a monarchy, like in Europe, or it could be an imperial rule, like in India. And then there's some turning point which leads to popular revolt against the presiding rule. So up until a certain point, we can say up until the climax, everyone's doing well, but this climax compels them to go against the government and create a revolt. And eventually, with the right resources, the revolt turns into a movement. People began to demand equality and liberal ideals, which are fostered during the 1800s and 1900s. The revolution begins, a true revolution, and nationalism eventually fostered, with the monarch being kicked out. And eventually a nation is formed. So if you think about it, the same pattern has been followed since 9th grade. The French Revolution, which was the first chapter of history in 9th grade, the presiding rule, or the monarch, was King Louis XVI. And the popular revolt was the storming of Bastille in 1789. The cause of this was an increase in taxes for the Third Estate, and the result was the French Revolution. In Nationalism in Europe, which is the first chapter of this year's history, 10th grade, the monarch was the autocratic rulers of Prussia, Austria, Denmark, the Habsburg Empire, Italy, etc. And the popular revolts included 1848, which was the rise of revolts, the age of revolts, if you will, across the world. And the cause was the influence from French Revolution a little bit, and also a demand for liberal ideals, which was the neo-monarchy, or the latest ideas. It's like the disruptive technology of today, back in the 1800s. So it's the newest thing that everyone wanted to foster. And the result of this revolution was a chapter called Nationalism in Europe. Nationalism in India, the imperial rule was by the British. There were several popular revolts, such as the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, the Salt March, the non-cooperation movement, the civil disobedience movement, etc. And the cause was the unfair revenue system, unequal rights, the demand for independence, and overall refusal of exploitation of natural resources. And the result of this was Indian independence movement. Step 3, focus on important revolutionary leaders. So always in any movement, there'll be the kickstarters, or the revolutionaries, who even start the movement in the first place. In Nationalism in Europe, we have Giuseppe Mazzini, who was also known as the architect of nation building. He created several underground societies, and he was exiled from Liguria for starting the national movement. And so that's him right here, this man. And he's responsible for the nation building of Italy. And we also have Giuseppe Garibaldi, which assisted Giuseppe Mazzini. And we have the Grimm brothers of Germany, who created folk tales to allow illiterate representations to allow everyone to understand the idea of nationalism. And kind of look the same. In nationalism in India, we had Gandhi and Nehru. Step 4. One of the most important topics, and I've had at least 2 questions in every social studies exam that I've ever taken, and that's personifying the nation. So, nationalism in Europe, France was personified through Marianne. And if you can see here, she's wearing the tricolor. Her clothing is in the tricolor. Blue, white, and red. And over here she's holding the Phrygian cap, which represents freedom of slaves. In her right hand she's carrying the Universal Declaration of Rights of Man. And there's several other small symbols that you can see here. And here you can see Germania, also hosting the tricolor of Germany, yellow, red, and black. She's carrying the sword for justice and courage, and also several smaller symbols like this plant, etc. And in nationalism in India, we had Bharat Mata, which is an important symbol to this day. So that concludes this video. I hope you enjoyed. As always, don't forget to drop a like and share this with someone that might find this helpful as well. And I think my next video will most likely be a vlog of some sort. So stay tuned for that. And until the next one, this is Unconventional Topper, signing off.